When we think of the Old West, images of rugged cowboys, sprawling cattle drives, and vast open plains immediately come to mind. But behind every successful cattle trail was a true unsung hero, the Chuck Wagon. More than just a mobile kitchen, the Chuck Wagon was the lifeline of the trail, providing food, comfort, and a gathering point for weary cowhands. Without it, the epic journeys that defined the cattle drives might never have succeeded. In this video, we'll dive into the fascinating history of the Chuck Wagon, explore how it earned its title as the real queen of the trail, and uncover the surprising innovations that made it indispensable on the open range. Before we hit the trail together, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories of grit, ingenuity, and survival from the American Old West. Saddle up and let's get started. Beyond the image of cowboys rounding up cattle, perhaps no symbol is more closely tied to the Old West cattle trail than the Chuck Wagon. Often romanticized in tales of the frontier, the Chuck Wagon was far more than a simple wagon. It was the heart of the trail, providing food, organization, and a sense of camaraderie for cowboys driving herds across vast and unforgiving landscapes. However, contrary to common belief, Chuck wagons were not a standard feature of all traveling caravans. Their invention was a specific response to the unique challenges faced by Texas cowboys on cattle drives. The Chuck wagon was designed to meet the demands of moving massive herds of cattle from Texas ranches to railheads or markets, often hundreds of miles away. Prior to its invention, cowboys relied on primitive and individual solutions for meals, carrying what little food they could manage in their saddlebags. This left them with limited options and required significant resourcefulness, often leading to unsatisfactory results on the trail. While some basic mobile kitchens existed along migration routes, these were rudimentary at best and not suited to the rigorous demands of cattle drives. Enter Charles Goodnight, a Texas rancher and visionary innovator. In 1866, Goodnight co-founded the Goodnight Loving Trail, a critical route for driving cattle northward to markets in Colorado and beyond. Recognizing that providing reliable, hot meals could improve morale and productivity, Goodnight saw an opportunity to not only solve a logistical problem, but also attract top-tier cowboys to his team. Recruiting skilled cowhands was essential, as the cattle drives were grueling, often lasting weeks or months. The ability to offer sustenance and comfort became a competitive advantage in securing the best talent. Goodnight's solution came in the form of a modified Studebaker wagon, a rugged surplus military vehicle known for its durability. Together with a talented cook, Goodnight transformed the wagon into a mobile kitchen specifically designed to handle the harsh realities of the trail. They reinforced the wagon with steel axles to endure the rough terrain and customized it with compartments that revolutionized meal preparation and storage. At the back of the wagon, Goodnight and his cook installed a chuck box, a sloped wooden box with a hinged lid that could fold down to create a flat workspace. This area became the cook's primary workstation, complete with drawers, shelves, and slots for storing utensils, dry goods, and other necessities. Beneath the chuck box, a storage area known as the boot was added to house larger items, such as the indispensable Dutch oven. The wagon was designed with efficiency in mind, ensuring the cook could operate effectively regardless of the conditions on the trail. The Chuck wagon's dimensions were practical yet compact, typically about 10 feet long and 38 to 40 inches wide, making it maneuverable across rugged paths while still providing ample storage. It carried staples like flour, beans, coffee, and salt, ensuring meals were consistent and filling, if not extravagant. The cook, often referred to as the cookie, held a respected role among the cowhands, serving not only as chef but also as a mediator, morale booster, and source of stability in the often chaotic life of the trail. Goodnight's invention was a game changer. The Chuck wagon not only improved the physical well-being of the cowboys, but also became a central gathering point, fostering a sense of community on the trail. By addressing a practical need with ingenuity, Goodnight elevated the cattle drive from a survival test to a more organized and efficient operation, ensuring its success as a vital part of the Old West economy. The Chuck wagon was a marvel of practical design, with every detail serving a specific purpose to ensure the success of long and arduous trail drives. A water barrel was securely fastened to the wagon's exterior, providing a critical supply of water for both cooking and drinking. Next to it, a coffee mill was attached, a vital tool for grinding fresh coffee beans, a staple that no cowboy would do without. Beneath the wagon, a canvas or cowhide sling known as the possum belly hung suspended, providing a convenient storage area for firewood and cow chips, which were often used as fuel in the wood-scarce plains. The entire wagon was covered with waterproof tarps, held up by arched boughs, to protect the contents from rain and dust. In addition, a canvas awning, called the Chuck Wagon fly, was often attached to the top of the chuck box. This could be unrolled to create a makeshift shelter during rainy weather, allowing the cook to continue working without interruption. For added utility, many wagons featured a jockey box at the front, a sturdy compartment designed to hold tools, heavy equipment, or spare parts needed to keep the wagon operational. On larger ranches, a second wagon often accompanied the chuck wagon, carrying bulkier items like bedrolls, spare saddles, tents, and additional supplies. Smaller operations, however, relied on the chuck wagon itself to carry not only food, but also personal belongings, horse feed, medical supplies, and anything else essential for life on the trail. This dual-purpose setup required careful organization to ensure everything had its place. The wagons were most commonly drawn by mules, prized for their endurance, though oxen were occasionally used. Over time, the chuck wagon's design and practicality made it indispensable not only for cattle drives, but also for other industries like logging and prospecting, where groups of workers required a mobile supply center. Its popularity spread across the western frontier, becoming a standard for communal living in remote areas. The origin of the term chuck wagon is attributed to two potential sources. Some claim it was named after Charles Chuck Goodnight, the inventor of the wagon. Others argue that it derives from the slang term chuck, meaning food. Either way, the name stuck, and the chuck wagon became an enduring symbol of trail life. The provisions carried in a chuck wagon were carefully selected for their longevity and ease of storage. Staples included beans, salted meats, coffee, onions, potatoes, lard, and flour, ingredients used to prepare hearty, simple meals. Beef, always in abundant supply on cattle drives, was the centerpiece of the menu. A skilled chuck wagon cook could prepare beef in a variety of ways to keep the cowboys satisfied. Fried steak was a universal favorite, but dishes like pot roasts, short ribs, and stews were also common. Contrary to popular belief, beans were not as frequent a part of the trail diet as commonly depicted. Although they were occasionally served, they required lengthy cooking times and significant amounts of water and fuel, making them impractical for the fast-paced life of the trail. The cook's creativity extended beyond the supplies in the wagon. Fresh food, such as game meat or wild vegetables, was often foraged along the way to supplement the staples. The chuck wagon's importance went beyond its role as a kitchen. It became the social hub of the trail, where cowboys gathered to eat, share stories, and unwind after long days of grueling labor. In many ways, it was the beating heart of life on the cattle drive, offering not just sustenance, but also a sense of community and home in the vast wilderness of the Wild West. On the long trail drives of the Old West, which often stretched up to 1,000 miles and could take 5 arduous months to complete, the cook was more than just the person preparing meals. He was the backbone of the operation. While trail drovers had the grueling task of managing the herds, it was the cook who ensured the morale and efficiency of the team. In fact, his role was considered so critical that he was often viewed as second in command, right after the trail boss. The cook's responsibilities extended far beyond cooking. He wore many hats, serving at times as the camp's barber, makeshift dentist, and even its banker, keeping the crew's small savings safe until the journey ended. The cook's ability to keep the camp running smoothly and the men fed and content was so vital that even the trail boss, a leader who earned $100 to $125 per month, would often defer to his judgment. The cook, who typically earned around $60 a month, held far more sway over the camp than the drovers, whose wages ranged between $25 and $40. Over time, the chuck wagon cook earned a variety of colorful nicknames, reflecting his central yet often peculiar role on the trail. Common monikers like Cookie and Koozie were joined by more humorous, if not entirely flattering terms such as pot rustler, belly cheater, dough puncher, greasy belly, and gut robber. Despite their jesting nature, these names underscored the cook's significance. No cowboy dared to complain about the meals, knowing full well that the cook was not just a provider of food, but also the glue holding the camp together. Meals, especially breakfast and dinner, were often the highlights of the day, offering a rare respite from the relentless work of herding cattle. However, a cook who failed to have meals ready on time could quickly become the target of ridicule. This tension perhaps contributed to the cook's infamous reputation for being ill-tempered. Yet this gruff demeanor wasn't born out of laziness, as some might assume. Though the drovers worked hard in the saddle, the cook's role demanded an entirely different kind of labor, one characterized by early mornings, late nights, and constant vigilance. The cook's day began well before dawn. While the cowhands were still asleep, he was up brewing coffee and preparing breakfast, so it would be ready by the time the drovers began saddling their horses. Once the crew set off for the day, the cook's responsibilities didn't end. He had to clean and store the cooking equipment, wash the dishes, pack the food supplies, and load the chuck wagon with bedrolls and other essentials. After hitching the wagon team, he would drive to the next camp, scouting for suitable locations along the way. Fuel for cooking was a constant necessity, often requiring the cook to gather firewood or, more commonly, cow chips, dried cattle dung that burned steadily in the wood-scarce plains. Additionally, the cook might forage for fresh food or ingredients to supplement the wagon's supplies, all while ensuring the wagon remained in working order. The cook's demanding schedule meant he operated on far less sleep than the rest of the crew. While others rested after a day of hard riding, the cook worked late into the evening, preparing dinner and making plans for the following day. His relentless workload, coupled with the pressure to maintain the camp's morale, likely contributed to his irritable reputation. In essence, the cook was not merely a provider of meals, but a linchpin in the success of any cattle drive. His ability to juggle numerous tasks while keeping the crew well-fed and in good spirits was a feat of endurance and skill. Though his gruffness and peculiar nicknames became the stuff of legend, the cook's role was far from trivial. It was the cornerstone of life on the trail. In the evenings, the cook had to work with urgency, often moving faster than the rest of the crew to reach the designated campsite ahead of them. His primary responsibility was to have a hot meal ready as soon as the cowboys arrived, a much-anticipated comfort after a grueling day on the trail. On days when the cook was in good spirits, he might go the extra mile by preparing a dessert, often a simple pie or pastry. Such gestures, while modest, were a rare treat and a highlight of the long journey. Dinner at the Chuck Wagon was more than just a meal. It was the social centerpiece of the day. The atmosphere around the wagon has been described as pleasantly barbaric, a fitting depiction of a group of rugged, hard-working men dining under open skies. While the talk was often colorful and peppered with profanity, there were unspoken but firmly adhered to rules of conduct at the Chuck Wagon. Certain practices were strictly forbidden to ensure the meal went smoothly. For instance, no one was to tie a horse to the chuck wagon or even near it, as the dust stirred up could contaminate the food. Riders approaching the camp were expected to stay downwind to avoid similar issues. Cowboys also knew better than to roughhouse near the wagon or crowd the cook's fire for warmth. The cook's workspace, including his tools, table, and supplies, was sacrosanct. No one dared to touch them, help themselves to a bite before the meal, or otherwise interfere with the cook's operations. When it came time to eat, the cowboys sat on the ground with their plates in hand, following additional unwritten rules. One particularly respected custom was that no cowboy took the last portion of any dish unless he was absolutely certain everyone else had finished eating. Similarly, when someone refilled his coffee cup and someone called out, "Man at the pot," he was obligated to fill the cups of anyone else holding theirs out, along with his own. Once the meal was over, the cowboys scraped their plates clean and deposited them in the wrecking pan, a large dish pan set aside for washing. But the cook's work didn't end there. After cleaning the dishes, he had to refill the wagon's water barrel and gather firewood or cow chips for the next day. Only after completing these tasks could the cook finally relax and enjoy what little remained of the evening. The golden era of the cattle drives was relatively brief, lasting only about 2 decades, from the end of the Civil War in 1865 to the mid-1880s. During this time, an estimated 10 million cattle were herded from Texas to railheads in Kansas and Missouri. From there, many herds continued on to markets in Wyoming and even Canada. The trail drives had a significant impact on the development of towns along these routes, though not always for the better. Some of the cattle towns quickly gained reputations for lawlessness, as the influx of drovers and transient workers created volatile environments. Among the most notorious were Dodge City, often called Wicked Dodge, and Abilene, famously nicknamed the Queen of the Cow Towns. Ellsworth and other Kansas towns similarly earned their place in history as unruly hubs of commerce, entertainment, and occasional violence. Despite the challenges and eventual decline of the trail drives, their legacy endures, and the Chuck Wagon remains a powerful symbol of the cowboy's life on the open range. It was more than a kitchen on wheels. It was a cultural centerpiece, embodying the resourcefulness, camaraderie, and rugged spirit of the Old West. In 1997, the American Chuck Wagon Association, ACWA, was established with a mission to preserve the legacy and cultural significance of the Chuck Wagon. This organization works diligently to educate the public about its historical importance while actively promoting Chuck Wagon-related activities across the country. Their efforts extend to documenting various aspects of Chuck Wagon heritage, including traditional equipment, cooking techniques, campsite setups, and period-appropriate clothing. Additionally, the ACWA maintains a registry of Chuck Wagons, ensuring their historical authenticity and ongoing recognition. One of the association's key initiatives involves organizing and participating in Chuck Wagon cook-off competitions held nationwide. These events not only celebrate culinary skills, but also emphasize the historical accuracy of the wagons themselves. Competitors are judged on their ability to recreate authentic Chuck Wagon experiences, from the meals they prepare to the meticulous details of their wagons and setups. Such competitions serve as vibrant showcases of the ingenuity and resourcefulness that defined life on the cattle trails. Adding further recognition to the art of Chuck Wagon cooking, the Academy of Western Artists presents an annual award that honors exceptional Chuck Wagon cooks. This award is part of a broader effort to celebrate and preserve the traditions of the American cowboy, extending to other cultural fields associated with the Western way of life. Chuck Wagon cook-offs and events have become popular attractions, drawing enthusiasts and the curious alike. Many of these gatherings are held annually and are open to the public, with some attracting crowds of over 1,000 attendees. The appeal of these events lies not only in the delicious, traditionally prepared meals, but also in the immersive historical experience they offer. For private events, Chuck Wagon caterers may be hired, bringing a touch of Old West authenticity to weddings, corporate gatherings, and other celebrations. In addition to competitions, Chuck Wagon suppers remain a beloved tradition throughout the regions once defined by cattle drives, spanning the western United States and western Canada. These suppers are often hosted independently or incorporated into larger activities, such as trail rides or stays at dude ranches. For many, the experience of dining at a Chuck Wagon supper is a nostalgic journey into the past, evoking the camaraderie and simplicity of life on the open range. The Chuck Wagon wasn't just a tool of convenience, it was the heart and soul of the cattle trail. It fed the hard-working cowboys, kept morale high, and stood as a symbol of ingenuity and resilience in the Old West. From Charles Goodnight's early invention to its enduring legacy celebrated today, the Chuck Wagon is a testament to the grit and resourcefulness that defined the American frontier. If you've enjoyed this journey into the past, hit that subscribe button to stay connected. Dive deeper into fascinating Old West history, uncover untold stories, and explore the legends that continue to captivate us today. Saddle up. We've got more trails to ride together.